Guys, we really don't have time to be doing a slow-mo walk. We gotta go.
Welcome to Good Game. I'm Barjo.
And I'm Hex.
Oh, it's good to be back, Hex. Did you have a good holiday?
I had an amazing holiday. I went to Europe. I went dog sledding. I saw heaps of medieval castles, and I went to heaps of places in Paris that were in Assassin's Creed Unity. It was really awesome.
I saw Goose also did a bit of travelling. He went to Japan.
I did.
He slept in a pod room.
Yeah, and he went to a lot of places that we went when we went there, like that robot restaurant and the cool retro game shop. What about you, Barjo? What did you get up to?
I did a bit of travelling too, Hex, but on 2 wheels. I got my motorbike licence.
Isn't that a scooter?
Yeah, it's same thing. Point is, I'm pretty hardcore, and I noticed the front of it actually looks a lot like Wheatley, so I'm organising some Portal-themed decals to go on it.
Whoa, that's awesome.
I also travelled to a faraway land, in my imagination, at the dinner table with pen and paper gaming. The name of my warforge is Grinder. I also went in the sun once. It was okay, 7 out of 10.
Well, now that we've caught up, we should get on with the show.
Yes, and what a show we have, Hex. A full hour of game reviews galore, including Elite Dangerous. And we run on rooftops in dying light.
Please, help me!
Plus, there's Life is Strange Part 1. Goose takes a look at how games make us laugh.
We have a new Good Game team member to welcome, and a very important announcement about scores.
Yes, but before all that, let's try and name the game for this week.
Pointer, you're getting too cocky. You'll pay for that someday.
Let's not make it today, all right?
Sure. Buckle up, cowboy. We're landing.
All right, well, let's kick off the year with some cops, robbers, guns, helicopters, cars, throw them all together and go crazy with Battlefield Hardline.
Ah, this is like Payday, but much more Fast and Furious. Zips up, bitches! Oh, that wasn't very successful.
What are you doing?
Just helping this guy out.
Found him.
Oh, no! We're fine, we're good. We're good, I'm dead.
If you haven't heard of Battlefield Hardline, it's a cops versus robbers spin-off for the franchise. Series creator DICE have handed the reins over to developer Visceral Games, creators of the excellent Dead Space series.
There will be a single-player campaign, but in the lead-up to the full release, there have been 2 multiplayer betas, and we caught the last one.
All units, you're going to go on that new car.
And Hex, the first thing I noticed was just how Battlefield it looks and feels. I know it's got Battlefield in the title, but still.
Yeah, the HUD icons, the textures, the sounds. At first, this felt like a highly polished cops and robbers mod. But with more hours of play, the differences and tweaks have started to reveal themselves.
The beta consisted of 3 modes, the most interesting of which are Heist and Hotwire. Hotwire's a bit like Conquest, except the cars are the conquest points. Your goal is to jump in, reach a certain speed and maintain it, hooning about. Slow down or explode and you'll lose the point. And you will explode a lot.
We're down a car. Winners lost a car.
Hotwire is frantic, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just something about having all those cop cars hooning about that makes it feel like an action film every 30 seconds.
I just found it really encourages games of chicken. The cars are so weak and they're pretty easy to take out with a grenade launcher. So when you're not in a car yourself, you end up just sitting in the road waiting for one to fang around a corner.
Here it comes.
It really encourages you to face and embrace death head on.
I like that whenever something explodes, there's this pressure wave that comes out.
It's all over.
Heist is a more involved mode, and it plays to the Hardline theme more too. It's a bank job. Criminals need to grab the loot and get out, while never-ending cops and robbers pour into the fray.
On the ground, now!
I quite quite enjoyed this Hex, especially utilizing all of the equipment that you get, but I kind of wish it was a bit more slower paced. It's so frantic that I just died constantly. Or maybe that's because I like the heist game Payday, which had a lot more of that slow-paced setup.
Yeah, I mean, Battlefield usually rewards the cautious player or the squad that really works together. But Heist is much faster paced. That doesn't mean it won't work though. I think once we get our head around some of the strategies, a good squad working together can do really well.
Good times.
As we mentioned, this is the second beta, and we recently spoke to senior producer Scott Probst and senior multiplayer level designer Evan Champlin about the growing importance of betas and what goes into designing a game like this.
So we basically redesigned the whole second half of that mode after the beta, because we were having a lot of fun in the office, but it was just, having thousands and thousands of people playing it that really, gave us the opportunity to change it.
How important are alphas and betas to you as a developer?
They are so valuable, right? I mean, from checking everything A to Z, that stability works, functionality is there, then you get into the fun. Is the fun there? Are we achieving the gameplay intent that we want? Are we delivering on, in this case, the cops and criminals fantasy? We're trying to validate so many different things, and especially when you have a new IP inside of an existing franchise that has expectations, there's a lot of stuff that we have to look at to make sure we're delivering on what we want to deliver on.
And then also just the community support that we've had so far too, just how dramatically that's affected our ability to improve the game. Basically the fans know that we're listening.
Hex, for the last year, Battlefield 4 has been my go-to shooter, so I have very high expectations for Hardline. And so far, this seems solid with plenty to unlock. There are a few things that concern me a little though, like how it's not quite as visually interesting as Battlefield. And I wonder if some of the modes will be a one-time affair, and everyone will just end up boringly playing standard Conquest. But it's not fair to judge any of that just from a beta, so I'm putting all those thoughts right to the back of my mind for now.
I'm curious about the single player more than anything else, since that seems to be the major focus of the game. I mean, the series has struggled in that department for a while, so maybe Visceral can breathe some life into that side of things.
Yes, I'm very keen to see how they go with it, but my gut feeling of this is there's a lot of good ideas and a lot of potential.
Okay, well, let's see what news Goose has for us.
Here's what's been making headlines over the break. Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number has been refused classification in Australia due to an animated scene depicting a violent sexual assault. The Australian Classification Board found the scene offends against the standards of morality, decency and propriety generally accepted by reasonable adults, despite the game's publisher Devolver claiming the scene has been misrepresented. Developer Denaton Games stated it will not contest the decision or submit an edited version. Massively multiplayer first-person shooter PlanetSide 2 has set the Guinness World Record for the most simultaneous players in a single FPS battle. 1,158 players, including 101 Australians, duked it out to claim the title, but only after nearly 54,000 virtual lives were lost.
The conflict continues here on Araxis, and the fighting grows every day.
The previous record was held by Team Fortress 2's Man vs. Machine mode, which saw 999 players come together in 2012 to snatch the title from the original PlanetSide.
Be efficient. Have a plan to kill everyone you meet.
Sony's MMO division, Sony Online Entertainment, has been sold to investment firm Columbus Nova. The studio has now been rebranded as Daybreak Game Company and will be developing its titles for multiple platforms, including Xbox and mobile platforms. Development will continue on several games currently in the works at the studio, including EverQuest Next and H1Z1. Valve Corporation's former economist-in-residence, Yanis Varoufakis, has been appointed as finance minister for Greece. Varoufakis worked at Valve between 2012 and 2013, researching Steam's virtual economy, and he remains a private consultant to the company. And sadly, the gaming world has lost two close friends. 29-year-old Andrew Yoon, a former writer for gaming website Joystick, has drowned while swimming at McKinney Falls State Park in Texas. Yoon had turned to game development with his two-player card game due for release this week. And 33-year-old Monty Om passed away after falling into a coma following a severe allergic reaction during a standard medical procedure. Monty was a talented animator whose skills were quickly noticed after producing the spectacular Haloid mashup fight. He went on to work for Namco Bandai on the game Afro Samurai and was hired shortly after by Rooster Teeth as an animator and choreographer for several of their series, including Red vs. Blue and Ruby. Our thoughts and condolences go out to all their families, friends and colleagues.
Thanks, Goose. Before we crack into our first review, Hex and I have something important to reveal. For a while now, we and the rest of the Good Game team have been carefully considering a change to our scoring system. We just find in that 1 to 10 zone, so many games are trapped in the 5 to 10 bracket, and that just doesn't really utilize the full range.
Yeah, and we feel this is because it can be difficult to find a meaningful difference between scores that fall in that lower end of the scale. I mean, anything below a 5 is considered bad, right? So it felt a bit arbitrary scoring things 3 or 4.
And I think it's widely considered online that 7 out of 10 is a shrug of the shoulders or average or even bad, and that just seems a bit silly.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is we could talk in circles for days and days about what constitutes the perfect scoring system for video games, and as a team we did.
I think at one point you wanted to drop scores altogether.
Yeah, and in many ways I'd love if that were possible. I scored a game with a picture of a tree once, remember? I'd call Dear Esther a journey in interactive poetry, and I'm scoring it with this picture of a tree, which I think represents whatever score inside of you it manages to evoke. But the reality is I think we all like the way some kind of rating system punctuates a review.
Yes, so after much deliberation, we decided to refine our scoring to a 5-star system. We think that is universally understood.
Yeah, and I think we both feel it better reflects the way we feel about a game.
We actually just stole it from At the Movies.
Yeah. But it's fine, because they don't need it anymore.
Yeah, and I totally checked with David.
What's up, David from At the Movies? Are you game for us to use your stars?
I'm game for anything.
Now, from time to time, we're also going to want to give a special award to those rare games that get a perfect score from both of us. So those games will receive the Golden Rubber Chicken.
Ooh, a rare and treasured beast. We couldn't let go of the chicken altogether.
No, but we should road test this new system of ours.
Yes, let's, with the HD remaster of Resident Evil.
A nightmare. Yourself. Practice makes perfect.
Well, Capcom sure is fond of re-releasing its games because this is the second time that Resident Evil has been dug out and prettied up. After the 1996 PlayStation original, there was a 2002 remake for GameCube, and now this is a remaster of that remake.
Yes, you could call it a re-release. Oh, but what a game that original one was. When people ask me, what is your favourite game of all time, Resident Evil is the game which comes to my mind first. So good.
Wow, I knew you liked Resident Evil, but I didn't know it was your all-time fave. I have to say though, considering the large crowds that we face in zombie games these days, I forgot how much of a solitary experience this was. Most of the game is spent exploring this huge mansion by yourself. Getting attacked by zombies was almost a rarity while I scrounged around rooms looking for items and solving puzzles.
Yeah, and that loneliness is part of what I love about this game so much. Many rooms are silent except for the echo of your footsteps, but you know the zombies are there somewhere, so the game just keeps ratcheting up that anticipation and tension. I'm on the edge of my seat with every loading screen, and those fixed camera views really help the fear as well.
Yeah, I definitely felt that. Yeah, I'd be watching that door open and then I could hear a zombie, but I wouldn't be able to see anything of the room except the corner that I was in. Those rooms were not fun. But before we get too deep into it, we should talk about what they've added in this remaster.
Yes, mostly this version is about the graphics. At the time, the original game's backgrounds looked stunning, but the characters stood out as pretty blocky. This was fixed in the GameCube version, and those are essentially still the visuals we have, except they've been scaled up to 1080p. And this brings out more detail in the real-time characters, but leaves the pre-rendered backgrounds looking a little blurry in comparison. There's also widescreen support now, but sadly that just cuts off the top and bottom.
No anamorphic widescreen. How did you cope?
I had to take a few deep breaths, but I did get over it eventually because the game is so good.
Well, the addition that I was most thankful for were the updated controls. No longer do you have to turn on the spot like an old tank. You just push in the direction you want to go, and it works. Although I still found myself doing more than a few of those awkward dances thanks to those confusing camera changes.
Yeah, me too. They're hard to get used to. It's very hard going back to that. Times have definitely moved on. But I just kept coming back to this game for its atmosphere. This game always keeps you on the back foot. Ammo and health pickups are scarce, and this makes you genuinely fear those encounters.
Oh dear. Click.
I think the most terrifying aspect of this game for me is just the save system. The game only saves when you use one of your ink ribbons on the old typewriters, and you only have a very limited number of ink ribbons. So you can really only afford to save every half hour or so, which is pretty stressful when the game has so many instant deaths. Ooh, I'll just try this switch I found. And I'm dead. So frustrating.
But that's all part of the tension. It's why it works so well.
Yeah, maybe for you because you remember where all the instant deaths are and you can save before them.
Hey, it's been 20 years since I first played this game. My memory's not that good. Plus, the GameCube version has a few surprises that caught me by surprise.
Oh, I don't remember the dog coming in. The dog never came in on the other version.
That dog's not meant to come inside, it's meant to stay outside the room.
No.
I just felt like there was so much backtracking around the mansion collecting items. You can only hold 6 items, and most of them are taken up with weapons, health, and keys. So I kept being told I couldn't pick up something that I needed, not even health plants. Like, I don't care if I don't have any space in my pockets for it. Just use the health then and there so I don't die, please. And if you have no free hands, just eat it off the ground or something.
It's like hold everything and bend over and
just eat it.
Off the ground? Yeah, makes sense. That is a fair point. The later games actually let you use health without having to store it first. Plus, with practice, you can get to know which items you can store safely until they're needed. And of course, you can also save on ammo by going for difficult headshots.
Oh! You are not getting up. You are not.
As soon as I started playing this, all those tips and tricks started flooding back, but I agree, this game does not hold your hand.
I don't need my hand held, but just some indication of where to go next would have been nice. Instead, you just have to go door to door trying each one to see if whatever key I have would fit. And there are so many locked doors.
Yes, this does come from a time where you need a pen and paper next to you as you play. And I think it's because 1996 was a simpler time for games that Resident Evil felt like such a big change for me personally. It was the first game that showed me how games could make you feel things. In this case, scaring the poo out of me. This is by far the best version of the game. I'm giving it 4 stars.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, because for me, without wearing those rose-tinted goggles of nostalgia, it was a bit of a slog, so I'm giving it 2.
What was that?
I'll go and check it out.
In addition to our score system, another thing that's new for us this year is that Good Game has a whole new daily show, a special digital edition dubbed Good Game Pocket.
Yes, you can watch it on iView, on YouTube, on your PCs, on your phones, on your tablets, each weekday around 3:30 p.m.
Yes, and of course this means we got to welcome someone new to the Good Game family.
A new face, Hex.
Yes, a new face. Let us introduce you to the host of Good Game Pocket, Hingers.
Hi guys, my name's Michael Hing, or Hingers, and I've played games for pretty much my entire life. As a kid, it was mostly RTSs with my older brother Chris. Dune, Warcraft, Age of Empires, Command & Conquer, StarCraft, Dawn of War, Total Annihilation, even Earth 2150. And nobody played Earth 2150. My brother and I were the fiercest of rivals, but he grew up and got a real job and became a contributing member of society, and frankly, that really added into our gaming time. Meanwhile, I dropped out of uni and became a stand-up comedian.
Upgrade complete.
I was also playing like 35 hours a week of StarCraft 2 in an attempt to diversify my limited job prospects and win an invitation to play in Korea. And you know what? I just snuck in, but under some pretty dubious circumstances. So I decided to stay here in Australia to work on my comedy career. And also, to be honest, I don't think I was ever going to be good enough to take on the pros. I got to do a bunch of stand-up at festivals all over Australia. I did a tiny amount of TV, and eventually I wound up right here at the ABC doing Triple J Mid-Dawns, where I played songs I liked to other nocturnal folk in the wee hours of the morning. Gaming-wise, I still play a lot of StarCraft and a lot of FIFA. I've also had a paid-up WoW subscription for about 10 years now. Every weekday, I'll be fronting up Good Game Pocket, your daily dose of gaming goodness. We'll be doing news, reviews, interviews, hands-on previews and Let's Plays. Absolutely nothing is off limits as long as it's gaming related. And we'll be listening to and analysing every little bit of your feedback to help us shape the show. Pocket will be available every weekday from around 3:30 via iView and online. So download the iView app and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye!
Thanks, Hingers.
Yes, welcome to the team.
Life is strange.
Isn't it, though?
Well, yes, but it's also an episodic graphic adventure about a shy, nerdy girl who likes taking pictures. That is, until one day she discovers she has an incredible power.
Can I actually reverse time?
There you go, Victoria. Why Arbus?
I did it.
Can you give me
I
an
actually
example of
did
a
it.
photographer who perfectly...
Episode 1 is set within the social gladiator arena that is an American high school. Snap-happy student Max is really only interested in one thing, keeping her head down and getting through her photography course. But once she discovers she has the ability to affect change in the events around her, she decides to take action.
There's only one way around this. I just want to get Victoria the hell out of the way.
No way! No
You okay, Victoria?
The game plays out in a similar vein to Telltale's graphic adventure games. You'll be involved in conversations and make certain choices that affect how characters react and have an impact on the greater narrative.
But of course, the rewind mechanic throws quite a spanner in everything we've come to expect from traditional narrative games. Because making a choice and living with the consequence of that action is what most of these games hinge on.
Now that's what I'm talking about. I actually helped somebody.
So I was a little confused as to how this would work.
I think they've been really clever about it.
I'm not 100% sold on it, but go on.
Well, generally the way it works in narrative games is you make a choice based on what you think will be the lesser of two evils. But no matter what you choose, there's always going to be a negative outcome for someone regardless. Allowing you to see one option play out and then rewind and choose the other one doesn't necessarily mean that you're able to make the better choice every time. Just a decision that will have a different chain of effect. I liked it.
It's certainly different, but I can't help but feel there were so many moments that give you an easy out. Like if you leave evidence that you've rifled through someone's belongings, you get that this action will have consequences pop up, so you can just rewind time and undo it.
Yeah, but you don't actually know that those consequences will necessarily be bad. By undoing that action, you could cheat yourself out of some positive outcome from it. But you can never be sure. It's all sliding doors, man.
Yeah, I guess. Some of those actions are really obvious when they're going to create an impact, but then there's some weird ones too.
You talking about the plant?
Yeah.
I haven't forgotten you, little Lisa.
I'm excited to see how watering that plant will dramatically affect Max's future. Like, I'm genuinely curious. How good is all the snooping, though?
Yeah.
This must be Chloe's parents' room. Man, I am nosy today.
I love a good snoop game, and this really is a game of just going through people's stuff.
And a lot of the time, that stuff is optional and not part of the puzzle solving.
Dog tags. Sweet.
But you get a much richer narrative picture when you take the time to hunt down all those little details hidden in every desk drawer or trash can.
Who'd have thought Chloe wouldn't pay her parking tickets?
What do you think of the story so far?
I really like it. I think the devs have taken the time to build a story set within this high school environment that feels natural and current.
Yeah, I agree. The interactions feel real, particularly in the dialogue.
Not everything changes. Except my camera has officially taken a shit.
My step-douche has a boatload of tools. Maybe you can fix it at my place.
I need very specific tiny tools.
Nerd alert. My stepdad has a fully stocked garage, and he actually is a tiny tool. Welcome home, Max.
Oh no, I wasn't so into the dialogue.
Really? I mean, teen slang is hard to nail, but I think they did a good job.
Some of it's okay, but quite a lot of it is cringeworthy. Plus, no kid that says, "my camera just took a shit," will then go on to say, "oh my lord," when something goes wrong.
Oh my lord!
Yeah, okay. The general themes and ideas explored through the game's story are where this game really shines, though. I think we agree on that.
Yeah, absolutely. The scenarios are believable. I love finding out about each character and trying to figure out what everyone's deal is, and deciding which characters to help, and then deciding when it seems best to put myself first.
Thanks for nothing, Max.
That said, the rewind mechanic as a way to solve puzzles is interesting, but it's also a little clumsy. Generally, you'll hit a point in a scene where you need to choose a different dialogue option by anticipating what you know the character wants to hear.
The Daguerrean process, invented by a
Because you just heard them say it, which isn't particularly challenging.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think there were some that were tougher, though. I couldn't find a hiding spot in Max's friend's bedroom before her stepdad came in, even after rewinding for another look. So I just gave up and let the chips fall where they may.
What's going on in here? Why is she here?
None of your business.
I like that they show percentages of other players' decisions, just like in the Telltale games.
Yeah, it's always such interesting social data, isn't it?
Overall, I liked this, and I definitely want to see where episode 2 goes. If anything, because I'm curious to see how that rewind mechanic will further be applied as the story plays out. I'm not completely sold on the idea, but it's certainly original, and I just love the look of this game. It's beautiful, and the presentation is top-notch. It's so cinematic. In fact, I think they do a better job than the Telltale games.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to love this. It looked like some kind of lame team drama, but I really enjoyed it. It's great storytelling with really well fleshed out characters. All the detail that's been lovingly crafted into the environment give it such substance.
Philip Lorca de Corsia, my man.
It's a mysterious story arc too. I'm absolutely keen to see what happens next. I'm giving it 4 stars.
I'm giving it 3.
This was my real father's camera. I want you to have it.
That's so cool you remembered my birthday. But I can't take this.
Of course you can. My dad would be pissed if I never used it, and now I know it'll be used awesomely. And I'll snag this picture as a symbol of our reunion. Cool?
The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and what better way to traverse that line than by using the coolest French trend since striped shirts and berets, parkour. As the art of freerunning complements so many aspects of gaming we already enjoy, like speed, action, reflexes, and style, it only makes sense that it's become such a popular remedy to many of our pre-existing platforming problems. The fast nature and flamboyant style of parkour is a satisfying method of traversing that brings with it a strong sense of urgency, perfect for heart-pounding chase scenes or nail-biting getaways, while at the same time also feeling incredibly gratifying, hunting out the most efficient path to our objective as we leap, flip, and slide our way there. Its sudden spring in popularity during the 2000s made it a must-have feature for many games that jumped on the free-running bandwagon, each trying at different ways to incorporate this rather distinctive movement system into their narratives. And while there have been many acrobatic avatars over time, it was the Assassin's Creed series that took the first major leap, giving players the ability to move almost seamlessly across its ancient environments with speed and fluidity. Meanwhile, Mirror's Edge embraced the style more directly, with elements more commonly associated with the sport, such as a modern time period, urban environments, and of course ridiculous fashion. From this jumping off point, many games have since attempted to incorporate free running with differing degrees of success, experimenting with a range of genres, viewpoints, and control schemes. And while some have soared to success, others have fallen flat, proving that in the end, the art of parkour is not always a walk in the park.
Dangerous is the latest in the seminal space simulator series and is by far the most ambitious yet. thanks largely to its accurate as possible one-to-one replica of the roughly 400 billion star systems in our Milky Way galaxy.
Yeah, it even replicates the way space makes you feel like a tiny, insignificant creature, just trying to find a way to justify your ultimately meaningless existence.
Yes, you're not some space hero destined to save the galaxy.
No.
You're a nobody, defined only by your rubbish ship and lack of cash. But you have the whole galaxy at your fingertips, beckoning you to become so much more.
Yeah, it's pretty much one big blank slate for you to find your way in. There's no story or campaign to guide you along. There's a little bit of lore buried in there, but really, you just have to figure out what role you want to fill and just get into it.
You can be a humble trader,
Cargo hold at maximum capacity.
hardworking miner, adventurous explorer, or deadly bounty hunter, just to name a few.
Target destroyed.
Each job needs the right tools though. So for example, if you want to be a miner, you'll need to buy yourself a mining laser and a refinery.
Now, some of you may remember that we briefly checked this out while it was in beta last year, and we had a few concerns.
Yeah, we weren't 100% sold on the combat, and the progress is definitely on the slow and grindy side.
Yeah, but I have actually come around on the combat quite a bit. Once I got a few more advanced weapons with auto tracking, I started having a lot more fun.
It's still slow and more considered combat than I'd really like though, but I'm sure if we could afford some of the best weapons, we'd be tearing ships apart in no time.
Oh, for sure. Sadly though, it will take forever to get those weapons.
Yeah, it's really slow going at the start. You've got to put in some decent time doing cargo runs and courier missions to get enough space cash before you can afford to buy your way into a more exciting existence.
It's a pretty big commitment, isn't it? After a few days, I'd only scraped together about 100,000 credits, but good upgrades cost a lot more than that, and decent ships cost tens of millions. I'm just not sure I'm willing to invest the time it's going to take to fully appreciate everything this game has to offer.
Yeah, you can't sit down and have a quick go of Elite Dangerous. I do like that you have to work hard to earn your place. I just wish it was a little easier to earn a living. But it's good that you can sell back any piece of gear for the same price you bought it for, so you're never punished for trying out different roles.
Early on, I found the best source of income was through those bulletin board missions that you find at each space station.
Docking successful. Engines disengaged.
Then I started to get pretty frustrated with them since there are often no missions that you can take. And then you have to spend about 10 minutes going to another space station all in the hope that it might possibly have a mission that you can do. I just often felt like I was wasting my time. I mean, maybe I was playing it wrong and there's another better way to get credits, but I sure couldn't find it.
It can be a bit like that. I do wish it held your hand just a little bit more. There are a few tutorial missions that do a good job of teaching you the controls, but there's almost nothing that teaches you about how to actually succeed in the game. It wasn't long before I was looking up tips and guides online to work out exactly how I should be playing this game.
Yeah, I think those guides are pretty much essential viewing in this case.
Yeah, and I didn't mind that. It's part of the experience.
We should also mention that this is pretty much an MMO with other players constantly roaming around and going about their space business.
And you would think in such a large galaxy you might not run into anyone else.
Scan detected.
But there are a few core systems where most players will spend their time, so it's not too lonely. And you can choose to play solo if you'd prefer to only have NPC characters floating around. But this is an always online game, so no internet, no play.
Yeah, now we didn't run into any connection issues, but I know there were quite a few people that were upset once it was revealed that this game would be always online, especially since an offline mode was promised in the original crowdfunding campaign, only to be removed right before the game was released.
Overall though, this is a big technical achievement and it just blows my mind. It's so beautiful at times, and that promise of a fully explorable galaxy is just so exciting. You can set a course for Sagittarius A, which is the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy, and actually go there if you're determined enough. That's amazing! And it also makes me a bit sad because I don't think I'm ever going to have a ship good enough to get there.
Exactly. I mean, it is hard not to be impressed by the sheer scope and freedom of it all. And I do think there's a ton of potential. I mean, even though this is out of beta, it still feels like early days. I mean, eventually pilots are going to be able to fly down into planets' atmospheres and drive around on them and board space stations and ships.
I'm so excited to see how this evolves. For now at least though, I think this is a real enthusiast's game, Hex. It's one for the die-hard space sim fans, someone who has a ridiculous joystick and the triple screen setup, or someone who wants to live in this universe and commit to their character. And I'm I'm just so happy there are games out there like this for them.
Yeah, and I think if you're after that kind of experience, then you'll get a lot out of Elite. But for me personally, I just don't feel like I was rewarded for the amount of time I put into this.
What are you going to give it?
I'm going to give it 2.5.
I'm going to give it 4 stars.
Integrity critical.
My first gaming love has to be, I think, Frontier Elite 2. The idea that you're in the spaceship and just looking at it back then of these dots that went past you, and they were stars, and you were heading off to a space, and it was unexplored, and no one had been there except you, and you could trade and fight, and you could get the Panther Clipper.
Tell us about that.
It was the best, most coolest ship ever. But yeah, it was just, that game just felt like, for the time, it had so much depth and so much detail that, yeah, I think just nothing else touched it for many years to come.
Well, we've got a bit of a backlog of emails, Barger, from the holidays, so I think we should go answer some questions.
Yes, to the answering questions desk.
Okay, well, let's kick off the year with this question from Randy, who is in Melbourne, Victoria. Hey, Gigi. I saw that Microsoft announced their headset, the HoloLens, which is more of an augmented reality thing compared to the other virtual reality headsets I've heard about. Oculus, Morpheus, Gear VR, etc. I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on AR versus VR in general? Also, do you think it's going to become a format war like HD DVD versus Blu-ray? Thanks, guys, and keep up the good work.
Great question, Randy. So for those who might not have heard about it, Microsoft is getting on board with the wearable tech trend with a headset of their own. It promises to fill your room with holograms and turn any space into a big, interactive, hologrammy space.
Yeah, their pitch video for it is pretty impressive, and it looks like AR could have some really amazing uses. And while it is all really cool, I feel like VR is going to be far more immersive and, tailored towards gaming.
Yeah, I think VR is going to be able to put us into game worlds, but I can still see AR having some pretty cool uses for games. But as the name suggests, I think those would be things that only augment the experience.
Yeah, I guess it would kind of be like you'd still be playing games on your TV or monitor, but then the HoloLens could make it so that characters could literally jump out of the screen and run around the room, or like maybe Cortana could pop up right next to you. That would be cool.
That would be cool. Or like interface panels, like inventory shuffling and that sort of thing. Yeah, and do you remember that weird projection room thing they showed off a while ago?
Oh, the Illumi room, I think it was called.
Illumi room.
Illumi room.
Yeah, so I think that HoloLens could basically do all the stuff that Illumi room was supposed to do, extending your screen all the way around the room and little effects and explosions going off in the corners, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but then would you still even need a screen? I mean, it could kind of just make a virtual screen for you, which could be as big as you wanted, couldn't it?
I guess it depends on how good the technology is going to be, but they did actually show that off, that giant screen. I saw as well they have something they've built with NASA that basically lets you explore around the Curiosity rover on Mars. So it's like you're actually on Mars. That is absolutely a dream come true. I want to do that right now. And that's the kind of experience I'd really expect from VR. So who knows, maybe it'll still be able to do those VR experiences as well or close to.
Well, I suppose we won't really know what it's capable of until we actually get hands-on with it.
Indeed. Or should that be heads-on?
Oh yeah, heads-on kind of sounds more accurate.
Goes on your head.
I suppose one big advantage that augmented reality has over virtual reality is that because you still see the real world, it shouldn't cause that same kind of motion sickness, maybe?
Yeah, I hope so, because that is a real issue, as we know.
The vomit bucket. Yeah. Anyway, it's all very exciting stuff to think about, and hopefully we'll get to experience it soon. As for if there's going to be some kind of format war, well, I think because there's such different kinds of tech, I don't imagine that there's going to be a format war over them.
Yeah, HD DVD and Blu-ray were two things trying to solve the same problem, but augmented reality and virtual reality are pretty different experiences. I'd imagine both technologies will find their own place in the world based on their strengths and weaknesses.
It's exciting, isn't it, Barju? Holograms and virtual reality and stuff. Yeah. It's the future, man.
Yeah, they even have hoverboards now. Amazing.
Yeah, but they're on like a magnet or something.
You just need to put like that magnetic strip across the whole world.
It's not the same.
It's going to be amazing.
It's not the same. Anyway, that's all the time we have for. If you'd like to send us in a question, you can do so here. All right, well, here's Goose with the first field story of 2015.
So
So, what's the deal with comedy games, right? It feels like 20 years ago, almost every game out there was trying its hardest to make us giggle, chuckle, or ROFL, whatever that means. The comedy game felt as much a legitimate category as, say, action or adventure. These days, however, it feels like there are far fewer games dedicated solely to the act of splitting our sides.
When compared to other forms of entertainment like film and TV, why are funny video games so uncommon? Well, comedy in games is actually quite hard. Jokes often come in second to mechanics, timing can be off or missed entirely. Not to mention, comedy is also extremely subjective. What tickles one person's funny bone can induce eye rolls and yawns for others. One of the most successful ways a game can be humorous is through the written or spoken word. Kind of like telling a good joke at a party, humour derived from text or dialogue allows for deliberate pacing, clever setups, and witty punchlines. Early text-based games hinged upon crafted humour. Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy put players in direct control of the absurd space adventure, delivering dry quips and humorous retorts to standard player inputs. This same witty approach to writing was nurtured from adolescence to adulthood by the talented team at LucasArts, who delivered some of the finest writing in comedy games history, combining sharp dialogue with memorable characters and proving that great humour can link audiences to even the strangest of video game settings.
Oh, on second thought, I want to upgrade my package.
And while intelligent verbal comedy has certainly taken a back seat to gameplay and graphics in modern games, titles like Portal 2, Thomas Was Alone, and The Stanley Parable prove that there's still a huge audience for highbrow, well-written conceptual comedy.
I'll say it. This is the worst adventure I've ever been on. I can promise you there definitely was a story here before.
Or maybe everything just sounds funny and narrated in a British accent. Perhaps the second easiest way to get a laugh in a video game is through the tried and tested formula of physical or slapstick comedy. Without the restrictions of real-life injury or death, physical humour is practically limitless in video games. Characters can be subjected to all sorts of simulated pain and torment purely for our amusement. And just like a Saturday morning cartoon, the humour itself isn't derived from the pain or injury suffered, but instead from the ridiculous nature of the situation. Sandbox games like Goat Simulator, Octodad, and I Am Bread have capitalised on this style of humour, allowing players to create as much chaos on screen as possible. And since the evolution of ragdoll physics, many of the biggest lols in games these days are simply the result of simulated gravity. Of course, the lower we climb on the ladder of good taste, the closer we get to the most common and controversial forms of comedy, crude humour. While often disregarded as cheap, lowbrow humour is still one of the most guiltily enjoyed aspects of video games, and it's been experimented with digitally even from the early days. Leisure Suit Larry in the Land of the Lounge Lizards was one of video games' earliest forays into this seedy underworld of gags. The game's juvenile writing, combined with the limited graphics of the time, meant it was hard to take this game too seriously, which no doubt played a big part in the game's popularity within the zeitgeist. Another big player in the crude humour category was none other than Duke Nukem himself. The self-proclaimed king of crass rode a wave of muscle-bound macho shtick through 2 whole decades.
Well, is it a gun in my pocket? Or am I just happy to see you?
But age has not been kind to either Larry or Duke, whose appeal wore off in a sea of sequels that each lowered the bar further in an attempt to try and remain relevant. Not all crass and crude humour need rely on sexist stereotypes, though. Many old games celebrating the odious and offensive remain as fond memories even to this day. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, the great Mighty Pooh.
Now I'm really getting rather mad. You're like a niggly, tiggly, shitty little tag nut. When I knock you out with all my bam, I'm going to take your head and ram it up my butt.
Your butt.
My butt.
Your butt.
That's right, my butt. My butt. My butt.
And with games like South Park, The Stick of Truth, flying the flag for all things foul-humoured, it's nice to see that there are still franchises out there that can make something as vulgar as crawling through a man's bowels funnier than it probably should be.
Make haste to the large intestine. All will be made clear to you then.
But more recently, there's been a riskier and more satisfying form of comedy that's aligned itself with games to great success, and that's the edgy spin of satire and parody. The spy spoof No One Lives Forever was a great example of how to blend classic cinematic cliches with traditional shooter mechanics. More notoriously, the Grand Theft Auto series grabbed the spotlight for its tongue-in-cheek take on American society, personalities, and pop culture. A formula the Saints Row series took and ran with until it reached levels of complete insanity.
They're closing us in! Stay on target.
Speaking of insanity, the Deadpool game broke almost every rule of comedy, including the fourth wall, making a joke out of the game itself.
Hello? Peter! Hey, I was just running around my game, and all of a sudden I noticed that some shit was f***ed up.
A technique that can create some great unexpected lols, but can also be harmful, such as in the mediocre title Eat Lead, The Return of Matt Hazard, an example of how over-relying on cheap references and self-deprecating humour can come at the cost of an enjoyable game.
Who the hell are you?
Your worst nightmare, except in the daytime when you are not asleep.
And maybe that's why we don't see as many outright comedy games these days. They're risky. In the famous last words of Shakespearean actor Edmund Kean, dying is easy, comedy is hard. And nowhere is that more appropriate than in video games. That's not to say that humour in games has been forgotten entirely. It just no longer defines a game like it used to. Instead, today, comedy is free to filter through all sorts of genres and infiltrate all different types of games, even if that means doing it yourself. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Goose. When your city has been overrun by zombies, it's not good to be stuck out in the dying light.
The eyes of the world have been glued to the city of Haran for the past 2 months, following the outbreak of a previously unknown pathogen.
It is not yet clear what has caused this gruesome affliction. The local government's Ministry of Defense erected a quarantine wall shortly after the outbreak. Will the ministry still go through with a stated plan to annihilate the city in an attempt to wipe out the Haran virus?
One thing is certain. Haran's days are numbered.
Dying Light is brought to us by Polish developers Techland, known for the Call of Juarez and Dead Island series. But this isn't a Dead Island sequel, despite the similarities in design.
HUD activated. Commence briefing.
You play as Crane, part of the GRE, or Global Relief Effort. Your mission is to obtain a stolen file of some sort. But after being dropped into the outbreak zone, things go very wrong.
Crane then takes refuge in a tower with some survivors and starts to work with them.
Whole damn city with nobody to call for help but ourselves.
But over time, he becomes conflicted with his orders from the GRE, his allegiances with the survivors he meets, and other more vicious organizations that control the region.
Go and think about it.
But pretty quickly, you get the impression that Crane doesn't want to be doing any of this.
And what exactly does Shakur want?
Oh, he's such a whinger, Barjo.
Yeah, I know. He's like a disgruntled teenager who doesn't want to do any of his homework.
All right, I've got your bag. Why couldn't you get it for yourself?
And when he's not whinging, he's just threatening people.
Don't need to point out how easy it would be to set this entire place on fire.
And then he whinges about having to threaten them in the first place.
Hey, for what it's worth, this isn't something I want to do.
I don't know if he's coming or going.
I'll tell you what. How about I break both your legs and drag you through the streets back to Rice's place, huh?
Yeah, it's tough to get invested in this campaign and story, isn't it?
Yeah, there's so many problems with characters and their motivations.
Yeah, and the dialogue is mostly generic. But I do appreciate that they've gone to the effort of designing and creating all of these little side characters with their own stories and quests.
You've taken enough. You can't have any more. Frickin' tell him.
Isla, please. Just let me talk to the man.
You know, they're not just blank slates.
Yeah. I think my main problem with the story is actually the first-person voice acting, which is always a challenge to get right.
What can I do for you, Crane?
You sabotaged the gate, Gersel. You let the infected into the village.
I just don't believe half of what he says. But thankfully, there are many things this game does very well, especially the parkour system, which I think is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's quite Mirror's Edge, isn't it?
The infected are all over the street.
So what does that tell you? Keep off the street.
The best way to avoid zombies as you bounce around between quests is to stay above them. aim, jumping, and keeping momentum feels just right. When you land well, things go smoothly, but when you miss or fall too far, you're really punished for it.
It's good you're not superhuman. That parkour system is just rough enough on you.
I can make that flagpole. Oh, shit.
Yeah, plus the head bob and the POV stuff is just spot on.
Isn't it? Especially when you're running through a field of zombies. I like how if you bump into one, you kind of get knocked, but not enough to break your momentum.
Hi. Hi. How's it going? Hi. 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 How's it going?
Oh no, this is silly.
You can tell they've worked really hard on this collision and movement system, from the controls to the overall just feel of momentum.
In fact, besides the odd animation glitch here and there, this is some of the best first-person melee I've ever played with a mouse or controller. You don't even notice how good it is, that's how good it is. Weapons don't last forever, and you'll often need to switch or repair in the middle of a fight. They swing and hit with solid weight, and there's plenty of weapons to create and play with. I also liked the volatility of your weapon augments.
Yeah, pretty quickly you learn that if your enemy is on fire or having an electric fit, then it's probably best to just stand back until they're done before you search their body for loot. It is good looting too, I thought, Barjo. There's a nice variety of locked chests and gear strewn about the world if you have the time to look for it.
I really liked how frantic grabbing stuff is. You hit the button to pick up the gear, and you're not halted by animations that play out too long.
Yeah, you really can just loot and run.
Yeah, and it may sound like a small thing, but I just found being able to grab stuff as you're fleeing zombies really kept the pace of the game going.
Ow.
As you progress, you unlock skill trees, and these are designed really well. They give you all sorts of perks, from better survival to new parkour moves and agility bonuses. Even camouflage.
They think I'm a zombie.
Your disguise isn't very good at all. It's just like a dude in a tank top.
It's just so nice to have a skill tree that I genuinely look forward to unlocking stuff in.
Absolutely. There's such great unlocks, such as bouncing over a zombie's head. Or our personal favourite, the dropkick.
It's like the best move ever.
That's not a guy that's fun to kick.
Co-op is another big part of this game, and while it does make the zombies a little bit less of a threat, it does add some much needed hilarity.
Look at this guy over here. He's like a little kid.
I could watch this all day. No, nobody wants to play with me. Okay, let's go do that. This is going well.
Ow.
I did find it a little bit weird how everyone looks like the main character, but that's a small niggle.
At least there are different outfits. Co-op is a lot of fun, but I found single player a completely different game.
Yeah, playing on your own progress is a lot slower, but it is much more of an intense survival horror experience.
I found that during the day, the zombies weren't much of a threat at all. You can ignore them mostly, which is an interesting design choice. But you can still get overwhelmed, especially on those highways. But when you're caught out at night, things get desperate.
Going out at night is basically suicide.
So go. Go.
We had some frantic nighttime runs, didn't we?
We certainly did.
Side of the,
Let's climb. We've got to climb up.
At night, zombies are much stronger, so much so that you mostly want to avoid engaging them or even letting them see you.
Help. Help.
Yeah. No, you're dead, man.
Help.
You can't kill these things at night.
Run.
No.
Run. Is this safe zone? Safe zone.
They'll hunt you down and take you out quickly.
Oh, God.
Oh, dear.
No, down.
I'm just not sure this particular day-night system works perfectly though, Barjo.
I'm just randomly running and kicking at the same time.
I can see that.
I think the developers want you to approach it stealthily at night, but I never wanted to stay out there for long because it's so easy to die.
Oh, shit.
Oh, I'm down. Ow, ow, ow.
I don't think the balance is quite right.
I don't feel like that. In fact, I want the nighttime to be more punishing because there's so many safe zones everywhere. You can just go there and sleep the night away.
Great. You awake?
Plus, at night you get a massive XP bonus, so if you're willing to work hard, you can get ahead quickly.
And I did like the atmosphere that the oncoming darkness created as the sun begins to set.
Okay, just now we have to really run.
Another thing that makes night so scary is invasions. Other players can invade your game at night as a fragile but deadly zombie.
Yes, it becomes a game of cat and mouse as you frantically try and spot the zombie as it stalks you.
How do I activate the live chat like that?
No! And use your UV light to stun and drain them enough to get away or take them down.
Our turn to hunt.
That said though, Badger, your maniacal screams and voice chat are more terrifying than the zombie itself.
Badger, no!
Wait, oh no!
On the park bench, we just had a nice little cuddle, Goose.
It's undeniably fun and a solid addition to the game.
And I like that the zombie has a whole skill tree to unlock as well. There's also a second zone you can reach, and it's quite beautiful.
The buildings are much higher, so falling is really dangerous, which mixes up the gameplay a little. We played this on PC, and when we tried to push up those visuals, we ran into quite a few performance issues.
Yeah, patches are coming through, but we did have to play this on medium settings.
Medium?
Yeah. Actually, it still looks quite good on medium.
Yeah, it does.
I'm surprised. But it's certainly not optimized for PC, especially if you're running multiple graphics cards. Other than that, though, I'm surprised how much I kept wanting to come back and play this. There's a good selection of zombies to fight.
Oh, he's so angry with his big mallet.
I quite liked the faster zombies, or pressure ones. They duck and dodge well, which makes fights more about skill rather than wild swinging.
The bandits are a little light on the brain department, though. Sometimes they'll engage you thoughtfully, but often they don't react to your guns enough, which just makes them seem like faster zombies.
It's good that guns are introduced at just the right time too, and that the game doesn't then turn into a shooter. Bullets are really valuable, so you end up saving them for tough enemies. Also, it only takes a couple of hits from a bandit's gun to take you out, so they're still thrilling to engage.
Wrapping up, I think it's natural to compare this to the Dead Island games, and I did enjoy them, but I found that the more I played of them, the more the quirks and flaws started to frustrate me. And I also felt that when my friends were far ahead of me, I was a bit useless. But in Dying Light, I always felt useful in a fight. And I think it gets more enjoyable the more you play.
I really like the shield.
I just love that parkour system so much, and the combat's fun, and those side quests are really rewarding, and those skill trees are good to unlock.
Yeah, it does have good progression, but I think ultimately I just had more fun with Dead Island.
Oh, you got me. Oh, there's one chasing us in the water, keep going!
Those games just had a kind of wackiness to them, and I just didn't find Dying Light as enjoyable, even though technically it is a more refined zombie game. I also didn't love the ending. In fact, the final achievement is called Bittersweet, which kind of sums up how I feel about this game, so I'm giving it 2.5.
I'm giving it 3 stars.
Nothing in there.
Airplane.
Take us with you. It just...
Stephanie Bendixson, aka Hex, elite computer hacker. CIA, FBI, NASA? There doesn't seem to be a government agency you haven't hacked into.
Is this a performance review, or are you going to get to the point?
You've got quite a rap sheet, Miss Bendixson. You could go away for a long time. Or you can make that all go away.
I'm listening.
We need your help to catch a madman. There's a hacker who's stealing our secrets and sending messages all over the internet.
Sorry. I'm no snitch.
It's a shame. Gaming on the inside is fairly limited.
Wait. What kind of messages is he leaving? It was Chrome back in 2003. Quite an innovative first-person shooter for the time, Chrome told the tale of Bolt Logan, a bounty hunter who has been wronged by his partner. He is soon joined by a mysterious woman named Carrie, and working together they uncover a global conspiracy surrounding a precious natural resource known as Chrome. And it's our name the game because it was developed by Techland, the makers of this week's Dying Light.
Next week, we hunt and become the hunted in Evolve.
Shooting the weak Bob. No, you didn't.
The downfall of the mighty Roman Empire is the setting for the new Total War, Attila.
We shall go out to conquer, just as we have done 1,000 times before, in the name of Almighty God!
Spawn Point, our show for younger gamers, is back on ABC3 this weekend with a look at Captain Toad Treasure Tracker.
And please check out Pocket and tell us what you think. Until next week, Barjo out.
Checks out.
Do you want me to give you a lift home on my scooter? Do you want a dink on the back?
No way.
It totally would be dangerous. I should not be allowed on the road.
No, I would say not.